Hey, Hannah Mouse One here, and slightly different video today. Today we're going to be baking a birthday cake for my granddad. So I start out by measuring the ingredients. I need 150 grams of butter, golden caster sugar, and flour. So I'm starting out with the butter, just adding it over the scale, and that is it. So now I bring in another bowl for the sugar, zero it, and I just pour that on. I actually go slightly over. I don't think that 1 gram made any difference, but hey, precision is important. And I do the same with the flour. I preheat the oven to 180 degrees and I line the cake tin with greaseproof paper. This was shockingly difficult with a camera in the way, and I end up having to basically redo this off camera to make it neater, but basically I just tuck it in and fold all the pieces around a heck of a lot neater than it looks here. You want it to be smooth if you want the edges of your cake to be smooth, basically. So then I just put the butter and sugar in a bowl together, and I start by mixing it with a hand whisk. The recipe I was using said you go straight in with an electric whisk, but whenever I do that, it's a complete mess. So I start by just mashing it around with a whisk. I should mention this isn't like a cake baking tutorial. Like, I'm not a baker. I'm not great at this, and you can probably point out 1,000 things I'm doing wrong. But yeah, I enjoy baking for what it's worth, and I think it came out alright in the end, so figure I may as well take you along with the journey. I spent ages trying to clear out as much of that stuff from the whisk as possible, and I put a tea towel over my arm before using the actual electric whisk, because the actual electric whisk is the bane of my existence. It is the messiest piece of kitchen equipment I have ever used, and I can never get everything to stay in the bowl. So I decided to protect my shirt sleeve. I whip it up into this nice sticky frostingy texture before adding in the eggs one by one and thoroughly mixing these in. As I understand it, you really need to mix the butter and sugar together really well before adding the eggs. Something to do with the oils in the butter and the water and eggs or something, but again, I'm not going to try and explain all this. That's just how I understand it. So I whisk this together as thoroughly as I can, and then I add in the second egg. I need to add 3 eggs total, and I scrape down the sides of the bowl to try and incorporate some of that in, and then I add in the third egg. It has this weird porridge texture right now, but I sort that out here. I use like a double broiler sort of thing, where like I fill like a wok with boiling water, and then I put this in there to heat it up slightly, and then I start mixing that around thoroughly. This is just to make this nice and smooth, and which helps. Yeah, like I said, this is definitely not the most effective way to make a cake, and I did need my mum's help at some point to work out how to do certain things. But given my degree of knowledge on the subject, this is about as good as I could do. When I took it off the heat, then the consistency change was suddenly really noticeable, and it became like pure liquid. I zest part of this lemon and add that in. I like lemon cakes, so I figured it would help to spruce it up slightly. And I add in a teaspoon of vanilla extract. So just these little extras. I add in a dash of milk, and then I also added in some salt. Apparently I lost that footage. I then start to fold in the flour. The whisk can go away for now. I just fold it in. I know I didn't want to over mix it at this stage, because I know you can over mix cake batter at this point pretty easily. So I just start folding it in until like they looked mixed together, even though it wasn't perfectly smooth. I just kind of dealt with that. I just continue to mix it in, get it nice and consistent, and then I just continue to do that. I did it in 3 parts just to make it a bit easier, and then I pour it into the cake tin, which I lined a lot more neatly off camera. So I just scrape the bowl, all the stuff from into the bowl into the cake tin, and then I put it in the oven. I do turn it around so it's more consistent, but yeah, I put it in the oven. I set the timer for like 25 minutes, but it ended up needing a bit longer. And when it's out of the oven, I then put it onto a plate, which, because I want to carve this and I want it to be nice and like solid for that, I decided to put it in the fridge to just make it a bit more secure. But in the meantime, I can start working on my icing. Apparently this piece of footage was recorded from the top down. The rest of it I did the other way around for some reason. But I just start off by rolling this out to make it nice and flat. And here is the cake, which I'm going to start to slice up. I remove this top piece to make it nice and flat. I just level it. And then I start cutting out chunks of the cake. I'm going to make this a race car, because my granddad really likes Formula 1. So I just start cutting out pieces of this and just trying to shape it. My biggest problem was, I'm not an F1 fan. I had no clue what an F1 car looks like. So I was trying to work out what shapes there were of images off the internet. And because it's a shiny surface, it's really difficult to see where stuff like plane changes and the big shapes are. But I did my best with it. And at this point, I take a small bowl and put in some pre-made frosting. I can make my own buttercream, but like, I don't really enjoy that. I didn't really want, like, the purpose of this video is me making and decorating a cake, not making buttercream. And this does the job, and I find it more enjoyable than making my own buttercream. I just mix in a bunch of cake crumbs from the offcuts that I had, and I tried to make this into almost a dough. I wanted this to be fairly dry, but obviously the icing's pretty sticky, so I had to add in a lot more cake. And cake is delicious, so no one's complaining about that. So I just crumble it up and put it in. And yeah, before I mix it all up, and at this point it was becoming a lot more solid, which is what I was after. And I was super happy with that. This is what I'm just going to use to shape out some of the finer details that I couldn't get through sculpting too easily. And I just kind of mush that on to start making the actual shapes, which make it look more like a car, because obviously a race car has a lot of curves and aerodynamic things that you can't really get through squares. So I start making more details, using this to blend planes together more, and I think it was actually starting to become more recognisable at this point as what I was trying to get it to be. This back bit was a bit annoying to do, and I actually end up cutting this off and starting again, so you can kind of ignore what I'm doing right now. But yeah, I didn't all of this I end up just redoing because it was a mess when it came to icing the cake. But for now, you can watch me struggle to try and get cake to defy gravity. But yeah. So now I go back to the front bit, and I slice this up. This is another piece which I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted it to look like. So you can see me try a couple of things until I'm satisfied with it, but yeah. It was pretty difficult for me to work out what I was doing with this. Yeah, I'm not a professional cake decorator by any means. I'm more just general artist, and this is just edible art, right? That's what cake decorating is. Edible art. So I just stick all this together and try to refine it more, blending out anywhere which looks too sharp for what I'm going for. But at this point I was actually getting really, really happy with it. I was actually thinking it's starting to look a bit like a race car. So I decided at this point I was going to stick on my icing. This is the red piece I rolled out earlier, and I just tuck it in and try and smooth it out as much as possible. I definitely could have done this a lot neater. The camera didn't help. It's kind of between me and what I was doing, so it was kind of like, I can't see what I am doing. But still. I then trim off the excess, just using my knife. and I just try and make that as neat as possible. I go all the way around like this, which took a while, but yeah. I had a lot of fun at this point. I love decorating cakes and stuff, so yeah. This is where I spend a very, very long time trying to figure out how to do the back. And it was not working at all. Like, I couldn't figure out how to make it look good, and in the end I just basically realised that the shape was just too complex. So yeah, after like a very, very long time, like this is very sped up. Considerably. So you have to imagine I was here for like probably about 20 minutes, if not. And like that was quite a bit cut out as well. So in the end I just remove that and start the back bit again. Hey, this is a learning experience. Don't do stuff which is way more difficult than what you know how to do. So yeah, I just build that up and make a much more simple shape. Then I just put another piece of red fondant icing over that and just kind of tidy that up and blend it in. Try and make it look like it was there the whole time. Yeah. It's a bit of a mess right now, but I can definitely tidy this up. This is a lot easier to tidy up than that complete mess I had before. Yeah, to help blend it out, I did have to like wet my finger and like just try and make it more sticky, because at this point the fondant was getting quite dry, but yeah, I eventually get it right. I use more of the icing cake dough stuff to make the wheels of the car. I just kind of roll out a ball and then smush it, and then I do this 4 times in total to create all 4 wheels. The way I attach the wheels ends up looking a lot more cartoony than realistic, but I think it still looks cool. And yeah, that makes 4. Then I roll out, like I just kind of squish out some black icing. And then I use it to cover the top of each of the wheels, and then I trim off the excess. I could have done more, like making the wheels look like they had a tyre and then like the inside part that I don't know what it's called because I don't know a thing about cars. But basically, I did that so they look like the entire thing's made out of rubber, which I'm pretty sure wheels aren't, but what do I know? It kind of fit the more cartoony, stylized aesthetic that I was going for, and honestly I didn't know how to make it look any different with the equipment and resources that I had at my disposal. I decided to add some black accents before I add the wheels properly though, so I roll out this piece of... I just kind of squish out, and then I roll it properly. I just get a nice piece of black fondant icing. This just helps add some variation to the, honestly at this point, rather plain design. I cut out this like rectangle shape out of the fondant, and then I cut that into half to make it into like 2 triangles. These are going to make like a stripe that goes around the side. I wet my finger and just use water as like an adhesive. And then I just kind of stick this onto the side. It just makes the entire thing look a bit more interesting. Based on the colours, I'd assume this car's a Ferrari, but I wasn't actually copying any model of car per se. I was just trying to get the general idea across that this is a car. Yeah. So I trim off the excess, and now I can add on the wheels over this stripe. It just adds some more variation. I kind of like having the red and black be a more consistent thing across the design. So yeah, I just use icing to stick on the wheels. And I think that looks really cool. Now I add a few more black details, like I add a visor on the driver's head by just cutting out this little semicircle. And then I stick this on. I then put this strip around the edge of the thing. I end up making this a lot thinner, but for now, as you can see, I end up cutting off a lot of that, but for now that will do. There we go. Now I add in like a little black back piece, and I just kind of, where there's like flat surfaces, I kind of just stick a black indent sort of thing to make it look like there's black surrounded by a red casing, which is kind of something I saw in a lot of F1 cars. This is again coming from someone with no idea how cars work or look or do anything. But I think this looks pretty cool. I then transfer this onto a nice plate. And with that, it is pretty much done. I think it looks really cool. And my granddad loved it. I can tell you. And so, yeah, thanks for watching. I will see you next week. Bye!